Hey everybody, this is Neil from Lightpillar and welcome to this live demo of our brand new Mac app called Spotless. In this video, I'm going to cover all of the major features and show you how you can use them to very easily get all of the files on your Mac in shipshape. So let's start with the Welcome Wizard. The Welcome Wizard is designed to introduce you to the concept of Spotless and how to set up simple tasks and automations to keep the most common file dustbins on your Mac tidy. That's right, your desktop and downloads folders. So when you finish watching this intro video, click continue, and the first thing we need to do is to create the Spotless folder. Now, the Spotless folder is a repository that you can use to copy files or move files to that you don't yet have a home for, or you don't yet know what to do with. So click the button. I typically put mine in my user folder. It's easy to remember and easy to get to. So click continue, and now I want to decide which tasks I want to create. So yes, I'll have a task for the desktop and the downloads, and for both of those tasks, which files would I like to organize? Yes, I'd like to organize pictures, documents and music, and I'd like them to be moved to these folders. If you want to change which folder they are moved to, you can just click on the drop down here and you can select any folder that you like. And then as mentioned, anything else that's not a picture, document or an audio file, please move that to my Spotless folder to be thought about and organized later. So now you've actually created the tasks, we now need to think about when you'd like those tasks to be scheduled. So for the desktop, if you're a particularly heavy user, you might want to run this task several times throughout the day. So we'll select this option here, and then I'll leave Monday to Friday selected, and I'll change that to my typical working hours, and I want it to run the tidy task every hour. Now the first tick box here, preview before applying changes. Spotless will show you what files it's found and what rule it's going to action those files with, and you'll get the chance to review that, and you can ignore any files that you don't want to be moved, or ignore or cancel the entire task. So I don't interrupt my own demonstration, I'm going to disable this schedule for now. So with that done, we'll click next, and it's the same thing for your downloads preset. My downloads folder isn't used very often, so I'll just do this every Friday, and 8 o'clock's fine, and I don't need to preview the changes on this particular case. I'll click next. So that's the basic setup complete, and for most people that's all they will need to do. If you've got any specific files on your desktop or in your downloads folder that you want to cater for, you can go into the task through the settings and add additional rules for those files, and I'll show you how to do that later. But for now, to get started, all you need is to drag any file up to this icon on your menu bar, and that's where the drop target will appear. And that's where Autotidy will then kick in, and you can start teaching Spotless what to do with your files. And that's where we'll go to next. So let's complete the setup and move on to Autotidy. Okay, so drag and drop with the Autotidy feature is probably the easiest and most convenient way to tidy files with Spotless. You could be buried deep within a folder structure on your Mac, come across some files that need organizing, and you can very easily just drag them up to the Spotless icon, drop them onto the drop target and get them tidied. So to demonstrate that, I've got a folder here with a selection of Office and image files, and we'll treat this as the source folder, and we're going to teach Spotless to move them to the Spotless folder. And as a quick tip here, there's a quick way to open the Spotless folder. If you right click on the Spotless icon, the Spotless folder will appear. So on the left, that's the destination, and on the right is the source. So to get started, just take these files, and start dragging them, and you'll see that the drop target appears. Drop them on the drop target, and now you'll see that Autotidy is kicked in. It's discovered a Microsoft Excel file and it's asking us what to do with it. So the action you've got here, default one is move, but you can do nothing, which is essentially ignore. You can copy or you can move to the trash. So we're going to leave it as move. We want to move it to the Spotless folder, but again you can use this drop down to select any location on your Mac. And we're going to create a subfolder, and we'll put this in Documents/Excel. We'll leave the tick box checked, and that will create this subfolder if it doesn't exist. And if Spotless was to try and move a file that already existed, we can tell it what to do to resolve the conflict, and we can skip, we can replace, we can keep both files based on the modification or creation date, or we can simply get Spotless to ask us each time so we can decide as and when the conflict occurs. So with that one created, you'll see it then skips to the next one. So we've now found PDFs, so we'll put this in reports/PDFs, and JPEGs, we'll put that inside images, JPEGs. Find a doc file, so a Word file, sorry, so that's documents/Word. Pages, put that inside documents/pages. A PNG or PNG file, we'll put that in images, PNGs. Let's find a text file, so we'll put that in notes and text files, and a numbers file, documents, numbers. There we go. So we've finished teaching Spotless what to do with all those file types, and we can see here the file list confirmation. This is an option that we can turn off here and in the settings, so we can get Spotless to run silently if we wish, and we can review the files, and anything that we're not sure about we can just untick. So all that looks good. We'll hit the process button, and we can see that all of the files from the source folder have now been moved, and we've got this very neat organized folder structure in the destination folder. You can see everything's there. So the task that was run, there is a record of that in the history, and you get to the history by left clicking on the Spotless icon, and you can see here that there's a task called Autotidy. It was processed on this date stamp, and we can see 14 of 14 files were affected. So click the little triangle, and we can see all the files that were processed, what the rule was, the little icon just confirming that it was a move action. If some of the rules had copied or deleted, you would see this graph bar here divided up into moved, copied and deleted sections, and you can use that as a filter to filter the list, and I'll show you that shortly. So you'll notice this little info icon. We can click on that and we can see a preview of the file, its name, where it was, the action that was taken, where it now is. You can reveal in Finder, get file info, you can undo the action, or you can simply close the panel. So say that budget file there, I didn't want to actually move that, so I can right click and just very simply do undo action, and you'll see that budget has been moved backwards into the source folder, and it's no longer in the Excel folder on the left hand side here. If we go back to the history, you can see that budget's been de-emphasized. It's got a little green undo icon which denotes that it was successfully undone. So that's all good. If we want to, we can undo the entire task by clicking on this button just here, or we can right click and undo task. Sometimes when a task has been undone, you don't want it to clutter the history, so you can undo and remove from history in one sweep, or just remove from history and leave the task actioned. So we'll undo task and remove from history, and you'll see now that all of the files have been put back. You'll also see that the folders that were created the subfolders that were created aren't deleted as a part of the undo, and that's because this folder may be in use by another task. So in that example, I wanted to undo the file budget. So say if there's a file that I was actually actively working on, and I don't want Spotless to automatically move it or copy it for me, I can create an ignore list. So if we use this menu icon here and open the preferences, you'll see we've got an ignore tab. So we can use the plus and minus buttons to add and remove files manually, or we can just simply drag and drop, and that file is now in the ignore list. So next time that we actually do a drag and drop, we can see that Spotless has automatically unticked the budget file because it knows it's in the ignore list. So one other option that I mentioned is the preview task before applying. We can change it at the task in the settings or untick it here. So if I untick it, and I'll just stop that, and then if we drag again, you'll now see that the Autotidy task has been processed silently. And if you are confident that you've got Spotless set up correctly and it's moving the files into the right places, and you're happy with that, disable that option and Spotless can process files without alerting you to what it's doing. Okay, so again, just to confirm the action, 13 of 14 files were affected. The 14th one was the one that was set to ignore. Everything is correctly in the history. We shall right click, undo and move from history. And now we'll look into how folders are processed. So if we drag a folder, the first thing you'll come across if you've got this option enabled is that Spotless will warn you that currently folders are treated as a single item and any contents inside are ignored. Now when it says ignored, it actually means that it can't recursively drill down into subfolder structures to look for a specific file to process. It will find the folder, and if you copy, move or delete it, it will also copy, move or delete all of its contents with it. The option to drill down recursively into subfolders is going to be introduced in a later version. So we can just tick that to don't show this warning again, and we'll carry on. And now we can see that Autotidy is kicked in because it's the first time that it's ever seen a folder. So create a rule for folders. So exactly the same thing as last time. We can move or copy, set it to the Spotless folder. As it's a subfolder, it's already a folder, we don't necessarily need to move it into a subfolder, we can leave it as it is. Just create that rule, and there you go. You see that's disappeared from the source folder and has now gone across to the Spotless folder. Okay, so next we shall get into looking into creating custom tasks and how you can create detailed rules to really target specific files that are on your Mac. Okay, so I've reset all of the files and the folders back to their defaults, and we're now going to take a detailed look on how to create customized tasks to really drill down into your files in a specific way. So let's go into the settings, into the add and edit tasks panel, and we're going to create a new task, and this one is going to be specifically to organize the stuff folder. So what we're going to do here is set up a few rules to show you how you can target specific files. So first of all, we're going to set up one for PNG images, and we are going to set up the conditions here so we can pick by kind, file extension, file name, so on and so forth. So we want to look for any files that have a file extension that is PNG. And then when it finds a PNG, we want to move it to the folder. Now you'll notice here that we've got a new option, default destination for task. This is useful in a scenario where if you've got a task that has a lot of rules, you don't necessarily want to have to specify the folder every time. So if we set it to default destination, we can set that default destination in a second just here and just do it once. So we can very easily change that later and not have to go back and change every single rule. So we'll create a folder, subfolder, and this is PNGs. That's done. We're now going to create another one, and we'll call this one JPEG images. Again, we need to target that by its file extension, but this time we're going to use the is one of, because JPEGs can be defined by a JPG extension, and we'll press space, and they can also be defined by a JPEG. So what it's saying is that any one of these file types will qualify as a JPEG image. This time we're going to copy them to the folder. Again, the default destination, we want to put them inside images, JPEGs. And then this time, to demonstrate a conflict, we're going to ask Spotless to ask me what to do with the conflict when it occurs, so I can make that judgment, depending on what files are in conflict. Right, okay, so next we're going to have a look at files which we don't want anymore. So we've got two draft files that in this scenario we're finished with. So we want a rule called delete drafts. So what we're going to do is we're going to determine whether the file is a draft by looking at the file name and checking to see if it contains the search string of draft. And be careful to make sure that what you type here is the same that's in the file name. So when it files a file that's got the word draft in it, we are going to move that to the trash. Now, what you might want to do is drill down to a specific file type. It could be a draft of a document, or it could be a draft of an image. So we'll just say that you can either do kind is of a particular type, or you could say file extension has to be, in this case we'll do again is one of PDF or numbers. So if it's either a PDF or a numbers file and it's got draft in the file name, we're going to move it to the trash. Now it's important here that we have all. If it has any, that means it will trash any file that's the file extension is a PDF or a numbers file, and any file that also has got draft in the file name. We want to match all the conditions, so that isolates just and pinpoints just those two files. So that one's done. And then finally, we've got two files here that have got screenshots. I've been working on screenshots recently, and I want to move those into a separate folder. So I'm going to look for archive screenshots, and the first thing I want to do is that I want to make sure it's only an image. So I'm going to do kind is image files. I'm not interested in spreadsheets that have got the word screenshot in the name. And then I want to do the file name contains screenshot, and again be careful that the string you type is the same that's in the file name. And these ones I want to move to folder, and I want to put these in a subfolder called images screenshots. Done. Okay, so they're the basic rules set up. You may be thinking that's everything, but this is where there's a very important detail that you need to be aware of. Spotless will process files in the order that it finds them, going from top to bottom. So in this case, it'll move all the PNGs it finds, then it'll move all of the JPEGs, and then the draft. It'll delete the drafts, and then it'll archive the screenshots. Well, by the time it gets to the screenshots, it's already processed all of the images, so there'll be nothing to do here. So you can reorder this list. So we'll go through and we'll just delete all the drafts first. Let's get them out of the way. Then we'll archive screenshots. And once those specific files have been targeted, we can just process whatever remaining PNG and JPEGs are left. Okay, so the final thing to do is now to set the default destination. So we can set this to the Spotless folder. And then for every other file type that it finds, like text files and pages and documents, we could use this rule here to catch those. So what this is the default action for files that don't match any of those rules. We can either do nothing, in which case it will leave them in the stuff folder, or we could say move them to a folder and we'll put those in a folder called unsorted for us to come back to later. Okay, so with that task done, what we'll do is we'll just move on to the drag and drop folder tab here, and we can see that by default the drag and drop is being configured to run the task Autotidy. Now if you are using Autotidy all the time, then it makes sense to do that, but if you want to chop and change easily, we can just set it to always ask. So now when we drag all of our files to the drop target, it'll ask us which files, which task we want to run. So in this case we want to run Organise the stuff folder. So we'll run the task. File list confirmation has come up and it's found that the default action has caught all of the files we didn't specify, but the delete drafts has successfully picked up the PDF with the draft in the name, and it has also found the travel planner with the draft in the file name. Archive screenshots has successfully found the two files with the screenshots in, and the PNGs and the JPEG images have been found by the JPEG and PNG rules. So everything looks good. So we'll hit process and see what happens. Okay, so as we can see, I'll just collapse this for a moment. We have got an images folder and an unsorted folder. Unsorted has all of the files that weren't governed or covered by the rules that we'd set up. Our rules were mainly for images, so in here we can see there's a folder with two JPEGs that were copied. There's also a folder with the two PNGs that were moved, and there's a folder with two PNGs that had the word screenshot in the name. The other task that we had was to delete the draft, so let's just open the trash, and we can see here curriculum vitae draft, travel planner draft are successfully in the trash, and the two JPEG files which were a copy have been left in the stuff folder. So let's just check the conflict resolution. So we'll drag these again. Want to organize the stuff folder? Yes. Run the task. We're confirming that those two are correct files. We'll process that, and now instantly look, it's come up with a file conflict. These files already exist. What would you like to do with them? I want to replace the existing files, or do I want to keep both? So I'm going to keep both files, apply that to all the conflicts, hit continue, and now we'll have a look in our JPEGs folder, and we'll see that there is a duplicate of each file, and what Spotless does, it puts the date and timestamp into the file name so you can see which one is the latest file. So a quick look back up at the history, we can see here that the first instance of running the stuff folder, 15 files affected. There's the list. We can see by using the filter what was moved, those files, what was copied, just the JPEGs, what was deleted, just the drafts, and then again this second time where the 2 JPEG files were copied and duplicate files were created. So we'll undo all of those tasks, put everything back to the way it was, and then we're now ready to look at the next major feature of Spotless, and that's setting up automations to automatically run tasks at specific times during the week or the day. Okay, so let's have a look at automating tasks with the scheduler. So you can see here that I've added an external drive, and that's the window on the right, and we're looking at a backup folder that's on this 2 terabyte Seagate drive, and on the left is the Spotless folder. So what we want to do is automate a task to automatically back up my Spotless folder to the external drive. So the first thing we need to do is to create the task which actually identifies what we're actually going to be doing. So in this case, we want to create a task which is called backup to external drive, and then this is slightly different in that we don't actually need to set up any rules. Rules are used to pinpoint the specifics of a file, but we don't care about that. We just want to target all the files that are in the Spotless folder. So we're going to use the default action for files not matching rules. If we use this, it will catch anything that is not covered by the rules in this window here, and as there aren't any rules, that means it will catch all the files. So we're going to set up copy file to folder. We want to select our external drive in the backup folder, and we'll create a subfolder. If you've got more than one computer at home or at your office, you may want to actually label the folder as to what that computer is. So MacBook Pro. Create a subfolder. If it doesn't exist, yes. If there's a conflict, I want Spotless to always warn me about that and ask me what to do. There may be a file that I'm backing up that I don't want to, for whatever reason. So with that task set, we now need to set up the automation that will run that task. The automations that you can see here are the ones that we created in the initial welcome wizard for backing up, for tidying up our desktop and downloads folders. So we just need to hit the plus button. We're going to create a new automation called weekly Spotless backup. So that's telling us exactly what it's going to do. So the watch folder is the file that Spotless is going to be looking at when this automation is triggered. So we want to process files in this case we want the Spotless folder, and as it's a weekly backup, we are just going to do it every Friday, and we'll do it at 10 o'clock at night. And we can have this automation automatically ask us what tasks are wrong, but in this case we want it to be the backup to external drive. So with that done, that's it, it's ready to go. All we need to do now is wait until 10 o'clock on a Friday and this rule will trigger. But what we'll do now is just run this task, this automation now, and we can see here the file list confirmation has popped up. Again, if we wanted to, on the backup to external drive, we can just disable that, because you want this weekly backup maybe to happen silently in the background. But we can see here that it's found the hidden DS store file. It's found the images folder and the notes and the documents, the subfolder and the reports. Everything all looks good. Just close this down. We'll hit process, and there we can see straight away the backup folder, a MacBook Pro folder has been created, and inside there we can see a mirror image of all of the files that we have in our Spotless folder. And that is all there is to it. Even though it's an automation that triggered this particular task, you can still see that when the task was run, so you can see exactly what was copied at that particular point. And as before, you can undo that entire operation or any individual file or folder that's listed with the undo button, either here or here. So not an awful lot to get into with automations. It's a very simple yet powerful system that you can use to automatically trigger all of your tidying tasks at certain times throughout your week. So that is automations. So that concludes the live demonstration. I hope you found the video informative and that it showed you just how simple it is to get all of your files easily organized. If you do have any comments, please feel free to email me at support@lightpillar.com. That will come straight through to me, Neil. And if you've not got Spotless yet, you can download a free 7-day trial from lightpillar.com, or you can also find it available on Setapp. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.